Get the recording.
There we go.
All right. Well, welcome everybody. So yeah, this talk is going to be very extemporaneous. I don't even have an outline. My outline is a visual outline. I literally took a slide deck of like slides, like 30 years, and I had to scan them. So a lot of the pictures, you'll notice the quality isn't so great because my little slide scanner isn't so good. But I think we'll still have an enjoyable time with them. So yeah, just a little bit of my background to start off with. I was an apprentice at the Carpenter's boat shop in 91 to 93. And I had never been on a boat in my life before I started building them. But I did woodworking a lot. I loved woodworking, and I was a shop geek and took wood shop every year in high school. And so when I was in college and struggling trying to pray the gay away, and didn't work. So I dropped out, and so a friend of mine told me about the Carpenter's boat shop, and it was perfect. It was just perfect. It was exactly what I needed, and helped me to give me direction in life. And so I'm eternally grateful to Bobby and Ruth and all of the staff that helped me discover the joy of boat building, but also discover joy. So then after I finished at the boat shop, I did took a couple of more years and did some woodworking teaching at a craft school and went back to college and finished college at Berea College in Kentucky in 1996. And when I graduated, I was eligible for a fellowship from the Thomas J. Watson Foundation, and he was the founder of IBM, and they give out fellowships to recent graduate small liberal arts colleges for coming up with some creative idea to spend a year abroad. So I started to think, what could I propose? And I knew I wanted to do something with wooden boats. And when I came across the gondola, that's it. And so I wrote up a proposal, and the foundation really liked it. And so off I went to Venice. I had never been, outside of America. Didn't speak a word of Italian, but young and stupid. So I went off and had my first year in Venice. I had to find somebody to teach me how to build gondolas, and I did, and that was amazing. And most of these slides are taken during that year. So and then after I finished that, I decided to stay, and I spent 10 more years there, and eventually had my own boatyard with 5 employees, and we built gondolas and other traditional boats, and a couple of boats that I designed myself. But the economy wasn't good to me, and I wasn't able to keep things afloat, so to speak, and ended up having to sell everything, and I moved back to Kentucky, where I went to college and started a whole new life. But let's start looking at some slides and start talking more about the gondola. So let me share my screen here. And let's see, I think I can go here, share that, and then go to that one and click on that. And that should be big enough for everybody to see. All right. So the presentation that I'm giving tonight is on the Venetian gondola. And we're going to talk about the history of it, the construction, and rowing. And at the end, I'm going to talk about apprenticeships. Now, you'll notice something in this picture, these illustrations of the gondola, that the gondola is very unusual, especially when you look at it straight on or from the back, because you can see that it's very crooked, not like other boats. The very few other boats are asymmetrical. And the reason that it's asymmetrical is you'll notice that on the starboard side, this piece of sculpture here, and there's actually one behind me right there, which is called a forcola, is where the oar goes. So a lot of people think that the gondola is poled. It is not poled. It's being rowed in a very special type of rowing style that is used on all Venetian boats, and all the other Venetian boats are perfectly symmetrical. But what that does, by having the asymmetrical hull, what it means is that the gondolier on the return stroke doesn't need to correct the path so much. And the gondola is able to go farther with one push of the oar. So it's a very, very efficient way of rowing. All right, so let's talk about Venice for a minute here. So Venice is a very special place, like no other city in the world. It is pretty much the same today as it was 300 or 400 years ago, where there's no cars. You see, there is a bridge that comes from the mainland, but you park your car here or you get off the train here, and then the rest of the city is all pedestrian. Not even bicycles, because there are so many canals that have these arched bridges over them with steps that you can't ride a bike on. Now, here's a little close up. So Venice is kind of divided in two parts by the Grand Canal, which snakes its way through. So there's the train station up on the top, and then the Grand Canal comes down, and right here is San Marco. So that's the main piazza of Venice. And so that was the political center of the city. So there was in this palace here is where the government was. So the Doge was an elected ruler, and Venice, I should say, is it started back in the 600s and 700s after Christ. So and it was the longest uninterrupted republic in the history of in the history of the world. And it had this elected ruler, the Doge, and it also a bicameral Senate, like our Congress. And it also had a judicial branch. So it had these three branches of government, and it was very successful. And so when the founders of our country were trying to figure out, well, how are we going to form a government, they looked very closely at the Venetian Republic. Not many people know that. So lots of great history in that, and Venice was one of the most powerful republics in the world in the 15 and 1600s. Let's talk a minute about what their big industry was: shipbuilding. So the Arsenale shipyard, which takes up about a fifth of the city, is this very, very large shipyard. They were able to crank out one galleon a day. That's how they had 15,000 workers that were employed, and they had forests that they would grow the trees in for shipbuilding. They would even bend the trees while growing to be able to more efficiently cut out the knees and the different curved pieces that were needed in the ships. That's how organized they were. And we talk about Henry Ford being the inventor of mass production. No, it was the Venetians. Here's a painting of the entrance to the Arsenale that was painted in, I think, 1726, the Canoletto. And in this painting, we can see the entrance to the Arsenale, and we can also see gondolas. So, the gondola, we don't know how old the gondola is. The oldest documents that we have that contain the word gondola are from the 1200s. I think 1292, and it was an edict that the Doge had said that gondolas could be built on such and such an island. So we know that there was a boat called the gondola in the 1200s. We don't know what it looked like. We start to understand what the gondola looked like from paintings that have survived. And so here's a painting that is a wonderful painting done by Carpaccio. And this is in the Accademia Gallery in Venice, if you get to go there. And so this painting is called the Miracle of the Relic of the Cross. And if you look up on this balcony, you'll see a priest and a boy who is suffering from demonic possession. Is, of course, that was the thing to be cured of with a relic of the cross. But what I like about this painting is that even though the main subject is demonic possession being healed by a relic of the cross, what Carpaccio really wanted to paint were the gondoliers. And so here we can see a close-up of it and all kinds of cute things going on here. But really, what's great about this is that we not only just get to see what the gondolas looked like in the 1400s, but we can also see the style of rowing and the different positions that the gondoliers are in and where they have their oar. We can see this guy here has his oar in front of the forcola, so he's slowing the boat down or to stop. And yeah, it's wonderful to see that. And what that tells us is, and the interesting thing about that is it's exactly the same style of rowing that's used today. So what that tells us is, first, the style of rowing developed, and then the boats developed around that style of rowing. And oh gosh, I love rowing in the Venetian style. You're standing up and facing forward. You can see where you're going. It's so much nicer than the way we row boats in the rest of the world, or in the eastern or in the western part of the world. So here's another painting from the 1700s. By Canoletto, and you'll see that you'll understand in a moment why I like Canoletto very much. So this is a painting of San Marco and the Doge's palace, and this really fancy boat in the back here, Bucentoro, And that was the ceremonial boat that they pulled out for the most important occasions. And you'll also notice these really fancy carved and gilded gondolas. Now, interesting thing, it was not legal to have a gondola that was anything but black with very simple decorations on it. This was at this time, there were many what they call sumptuary laws. And so the Venetians did not want outsiders to look upon them as being opulent, because then people would get jealous, and that could cause political problems. And so they had laws about things like the display of wealth. But certain gondolas they allowed to be highly decorated, and they were ceremonial gondolas for things like receiving ambassadors. So this is another Canaletto painting called The Reception of the French Ambassadors. And we see some pretty fancy gondolas with these ridiculous carvings. You know, there's statues of Neptune and Putti and all kinds of wonderful sumptuous carvings. And there we can see a little bit more detail of that. But you'll notice the vast majority of the gondolas are black. And another thing is that I don't know if you can make it out, but they all have these little cabins on them, because this was the horse and carriage for the Venetians, for the noble families, and their livery service were gondoliers. Here's another painting, a very special painting to me. This is Rio dei Mendicanti, and in this painting we can actually see a gondola yard. So we have here just a dirt bank going up into a shack, essentially, and that was where gondolas were built and maintained. And this there is a gondola yard there today, and that was the gondola yard that I had the pleasure to own for 5 years. And so when I found that property for sale and was looking for a place to buy, I had to get it. And of course, and so then and the name, the Venetian word for a boatyard is squero, Squero. And so the name of my boatyard was Squero Canaletto, in honor of the painter of this painting. Here we can see a close-up of the workers launching this gondola that they've just finished working on. And this is what it looks like today. So you can see the same church right over here, and the gondola yard is right over here. And this is a picture taken of the first gondola that we built at Squero Canaletto. And this gondola went to New Orleans. This is a much more famous Squero. This is Squero San Trovaso, and this is near the Accademia in Dorsoduro, so other side of town from where I was, but much more famous. It's interesting, this one, because you notice that the style of architecture looks much more alpine, something like you might see up in the Dolomites. And there's a good reason for that, and that's because the Venetians themselves, they were merchants, and they were, tradespeople, traders, I should say, but they were not craftspeople. So they imported craftspeople, and most of the gondola builders came from the mountains, and so they brought with them their style of making buildings as well. This is the squero where I did my apprenticeship. There are actually two squeros here. So the one on the left here is the squero Tramontin, and that is a family of gondola builders that went back to the 1800s. And Domenico Tramontin was actually the gondola builder who developed the asymmetry of the gondola. So in the mid to late 1800s. So before that, the gondola was perfectly symmetrical. But it's interesting because after the fall of the Venetian Republic in 1797, when Napoleon came and they just handed him the keys to the city, basically, the noble families no longer had as much power and wealth as they once enjoyed, and so they started laying off some of their staff, and most of the time gondolas would be rowed, instead of by two oarsmen like we saw in some of the paintings by Canaletto, they would just be rowed by one oarsman on the stern, as they are today. And in order to improve the efficiency of the gondola, they discovered that by making it asymmetrical, that it actually worked really well. So this is where that happened. Bonaldo, my maestro, is on the other side of this wall here. They fought. Oh, they hated each other. We call this the Berlin Wall. I got along with everybody, but the pictures that I'll be showing you were all taken over on the other side of this wall. Let's talk a little bit more about Venetian rowing. So here we can see a couple of youngsters being taught how to row in a very typical little Venetian boat called a mascaretta, and so the difficult, I can see this kid is struggling here. Boy, the difficult thing is keeping the oar in that little notch right there in the forklight. Unless you once you get the hang of it, you realize, you understand how to keep it in there. But boy, at first, keeping it in there is just so hard. But I love this because Venetians love to row, and that's an important part of their culture. So another reason that gondolas are rowed with just one oar is because the canals, other than the Grand Canal, are pretty narrow, and in order for boats to pass each other, with just one oar, it makes it much easier, because then you can have the boat over to one side, and boats can pass with the oar in the middle of the canal, so that they have more steerage. And so this forcola, you put the oar in different places on the forcola in order to do different maneuvers. So that when you're just rowing standard, it's up here in that notch called the morso. But when you're starting off, you put it down at the base here and give it a couple of really good, just to get some motion in the boat, and then you can put it up into the morso. Let's see, here we have a gondolier rowing backwards, so he's got it more in the elbow of the forcola, and he's got and it's just kind of fishtailing the oar back and forth to move the boat backwards. And a lot of times they'll kick off the wall or another boat, so there's all kinds of ways that you can make the boat do what you want to do. And the gondola is amazingly uh, uh, agile. You can, it's 36 feet long, but you can turn it on a dime. It's got so much rocker, and it's a flat bottom boat, so there is nothing to keep it from turning. It actually has a very short water line. Let's talk about gondoliers. So, here, this is a female gondolier, and she got her license just, I think, about 10 years ago, and many consider her to be the first gondoliera, the first female gondolier. I wonder if that's true, because Venice has a very long history, and women have been rowing for all that time too. So I'm not sure that I would say that she is the first female gondolier, but in modern times, yes, and certainly in the 1900s, it was very much a macho occupation. But very good to see a little bit of gender diversity happening in that sector. All right, let's start talking about the construction of the gondola. And here, these are my slides from back in the day. So the gondola is built a lot like a dory is. So it's a flat bottom boat built with frames. And it's a little hard to see in this picture, but the frames are made up of three pieces. So there's the bottom piece, the floor, and then the two side pieces. And there's 33 frames that make up the throughout the length of the gondola. You can see them all stacked up here, and each one is different from the other, obviously, and each side is different from the other. Now, back in the day when they were bending the trees to make the pieces stronger and lighter, it would have just been made out of two pieces, two kind of hockey stick pieces that overlapped on the bottom. But nowadays they're made out of three. And the wood that is used, the bottom is white oak, and the sides, the buttocks are elm. And elm, not really a great boat building wood because it tends to rot more, but it's very resistant to splitting. And these frames are really thin. They're only about 5/8 of an inch. And the planks are fastened with nails. So as you're driving the nail in, if that were made out of oak, it would just split right open. Elm won't. Here's the stem. The stems on the gondola are very simple to make. They're so much easier to make than on a dory. You don't have any rabbet to accept the planks. The planks are just beveled, and because it's high and dry, so it's not like it has to hold water out. So here is most of the frames fastened to the strong back, which is called the cantiere. And the cantiere is the most important part of the squero. It's a permanent fixture there that holds all the pieces together while the boat is being assembled. This is Maestro Bonaldo, who taught me. And you can see he is using fire in order to shape the wood. So in Venice, they don't have steam boxes. They use fire, and it's a wonderful way to bend wood, because you've got so much more control over where it's bending. And you don't have that anxiety of, oh my God, I've got to get it out of the steam box and get it into shape before it cools off. So yeah, it's a great technique for bending wood, and you just keep sprinkling it with water so that it doesn't burn too much. Here you can see that piece, and it is pretty charred, but it doesn't matter. It's not burnt. It's just charred. And you know, it's not all of the frames haven't been put in yet. There's still frames that are going in here. A lot of this is just done by eye. You know, the curvature is defined by the gondola builder. And so there's the stern with there's a couple of pieces that you add at the to bring it up to the point. And you can see here the side decks have been installed. And this little shelf here is really interesting, the way that it's made. And I'll talk about that in a second. The breast hook up here is this massive block of, you start off with a chunk of a tree trunk and basically just carve it out. And it is basswood. It's very easy, very lightweight, and very easy to carve. But that kind of holds everything together in the front, and it also gives a nice inertial mass at the two extremities, so that when the gondola is being maneuvered, it keeps that momentum, that inertial momentum. This is the main structural member that in the middle of the boat that keeps it from getting squished. And it's even got a little storage compartment in it. There is the bow deck being completed. And so here's that shelf that I was talking about. And that really adds a lot of strength to it, because at each frame here, there is a notch, and it's not a notch that is pretty and done like you would on a piece of fine furniture. It is tapered. Let's look at this one here. You can see better. This piece, this is an additional piece that goes right below that shelf, but made in the same way. This is to provide more support for the forcola, since that's what's driving the boat. So, but you can see here that these cuts this is upside down here. These cuts are angled, so it's not perfectly parallel to the frame. And in addition to that, as you go farther in, they get narrower. So what that does, let's look here, as you drive it in to those frames, it really just cuts right into the frame and you cannot ever get it out once you've driven it in. It's extremely tight, and that really holds the boat together very, very well. There's a saying in Venice, stucco e pittura fa bella figura. So that with translated literally, that's putty and paint make a beautiful picture. So, and I've heard an English version of that, putty and paint make a boat what it ain't. So, but that's how they're made. Okay, here's the stern deck, a little bit more complete. There's still a little bit to do on here. We've got the top planks on the sides. Those planks are one piece, the whole length. And those planks, they're hard to find. We got the sawyers at the lumber supplier know what kind of a tree we're looking for. It's got to be white oak, and it comes out of Slovenia, and it has to have just the right amount of curvature to it, and it has to be nice and thick at the butt end and taper down towards the bow. And And when they find a log, they call up around to the different gondola builders and say, "Hey, we've got a log," and whoever wants it will go up and ride shotgun with the sawyer, tell them exactly how thick to cut every plank, because we want to get the most planks out of that log as possible. Here is the top side pretty much complete in the first phase of construction. And we're ready to take it off of the jig, off of the cantier now. Here we can see a gondola that's almost completed next to the gondola that I'm building. So this gondola has to get out of the squero first before we can take it off, take this one off of the cantier. But here we are. We've taken it off the cantier, turned it upside down, and we're ready to finish the hull. And it's interesting because the gondola has so much curvature. If you only if you were to try and work on it when it's upside down, without having these holes in the floor here for the two stem heads to go down, and it would be way up in the air. It would be difficult to so we have these holes in the floor to allow us to have it at a nice working height. Yeah, so the chines, it's kind of done in kind of a special way. So the corners of the frames are rounded over, and here are the chines. So there are these just basically corner strips that run the length of the bottom, and special handmade plane passed down from generation to generation on to make that cove. So here's the stern of the gondola. All the various pieces have been added to close it in, and it's been painted, and we're ready to flip it back over once again and start finishing out the top side. Here we've put on the rub rails, except for these last pieces, these four pieces of that's the hardest part and the most important, because that's what your eye goes towards. And if it's wrong, if you don't get it just right, people will say, there's something wrong with that gondola. So you've got that's a really tricky part. That's what the gondoliers are staring at most of the time. So they're they want you to get it right. Here I'm working on the platform where the gondolier stands. There's a low-angled skewed block plane from Lee Nielsen. And there's Maestro Bonaldo and his assistant making those, bending those last four pieces, the volta di masse. And there's one of them in the works. And this gondola, it was my first gondola, and so the carver. So there are many artisans that work on a gondola, not just the gondola builder. There's a carver, there's an upholsterer, there's an artisan that makes the oar and the forcula. That's a separate thing. But so the carver, to honor me, put an American flag on it. I wouldn't have chosen that, but he thought it was good. And then this gondola ended up being sold to an American. We didn't realize that would happen at the time. And it went to Providence, Rhode Island. And so here's launch day. So we've got all this 7 or 8 coats of very, very black paint, and a lot of brass. And there she is in the water. And here we are at Squero Canaletto. So several years later, and this was our first gondola. And I decided, for various reasons, to leave the top sides bright. I oiled it so that people could see the quality of the workmanship. Also, I was behind schedule, and we did paint it black afterwards. But I really do like that effect of the oiled top sides. And this, I'm not going to play it because we don't have time, but I will put a link to this slideshow in the chat, and you can check this out. But this was a a um pilot for a TV series that we were going to do on building gondolas. We just did the pilot, but you can also scan the QR code if you want to see it that way. But it shows much more about my gondola yard in that I owned. And okay, and there is that gondola, the first gondola that ended up in New Orleans. So let's see, we're coming up on quarter till, so that is pretty much my slideshow. Let me just talk a little bit about what's been going on since this picture was taken. So we built gondolas for 5 years, and then like I said, the economy wasn't good to me, and so I ended up selling my boatyard and moving back to Kentucky. I got into energy efficiency for low-income families, and I worked in the weatherization assistance program and I've been working in that program for about 15 years now. Very much inspired by Ruth Ives in that. So, really, the working with Chip was a wonderful experience for me, and taught me the value of community service. And so I've enjoyed that work very much, and I currently work for the Department of Energy. But it's not the job that I want to have for the rest of my life. And so I've decided that I'm going to be starting a apprenticeship program here in Baltimore. And so I'm founding a nonprofit, and we'll be taking on apprentices probably next year. And so we will be working on gondolas. And I'm very excited about that. I also will continue my work with low-income families, and so really my project that I'm working on looks a lot like the Carpenter's Boat Shop did when I was an apprentice with community service as an integral part of it. So so that is pretty much what I had planned on sharing. And so I'm going to open things up for conversation now.
Thom, can I ask how long does it take to build a gondola?
It's a good question. Yeah. It takes about 1,000 hours. So it depends on how many people you have working on it. It also depends on if you've got, if you're training people. Obviously, if you're training people, as you know, things take longer.
Yeah.
But oftentimes, a gondola is built once, and then it's maintained and repaired throughout its life. So most of the work in a boatyard is maintenance and repair. And the fun part is building new boats. So, but what pays the bills is the maintenance and repair. And so typically a gondola yard will have a gondola under construction, and they will put out one gondola a year, one new gondola a year, and just kind of work on that on the side.
Sure. So here's a question. If I wanted to build a gondola, how much would it cost?
If you wanted to build a gondola or have one built,
The question said build.
to build, well, that's a good question. I mean, of course, the main expense is labor. The materials, you know, depending on where you live, if you're in a place that you can go to a sawmill and get things, buy materials there, it's going to be one cost. If you're buying it from expensive lumber places, then that's going to be much more. But yeah, probably at least $10,000. But if you're going to have one built, right now, I think the going rate is around $60,000.
Cool. And you mentioned that one of them went to New Orleans and one of them went to Rhode Island. Is that typical that they're being built in Italy and then shipped to various places around the world?
It's not uncommon. Obviously, that was I had a corner on that market. So if somebody in the United States wanted a gondola, they typically came to me, because I was, there wasn't as much of a language barrier, let's put it that way. And I had lots of articles written about me, and was on TV quite a bit. So I got to be pretty well known back in the day.
Thom, is the business of building traditional gondolas still healthy in Venice, or are they being built of fiberglass?
So no gondolas are built of fiberglass, no. And there are about 5 gondola builders that are currently building gondolas right now. That's down from 6 or 7 when I was there.
Folks have more questions for Thom?
And feel free to unmute yourself too if you want to chime in. Bobby, it's great to see you. You're muted though. You're
You're
muted.
muted, buddy.
I didn't
It's a
realize I do what he's saying though, yeah.
You can't feel it. That's all right, Bobby. We still love you.
Thom, how many gondolas?
Right, is that better? Is that better? Is that better? Hello?
Thom,
I'm
how
sorry.
how many
Okay.
gondolas are in Venice right now?
How many gondolas? Okay, so there are 400 and I want to say 15 gondolier licenses. So it's a very controlled, let's put it that way, controlled sector of the workforce. And now there are more gondolas than that, because it's not like you have to have a license to have a gondola. You only have to have a license to take passengers for hire. Kind of
Okay.
like captain's license.
Okay.
So yeah, I'd say probably close to 700, 600 or 700 gondolas.
Okay. And is there any, you say they're always being repaired. Do any of them just like age out? I'm just thinking, if you continue to buy new ones, eventually you're just going to have the canals clogged with gondolas.
Yeah, I mean, there are only let's say 10 new gondolas a year that are
Okay.
And so yeah, and they tend to last 30 or 40 years depending on how well they're maintained.
Thank you.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Thom, can you hear me now?
Yes, now I can hear you.
Oh, I'm better with a block plane than I am with technology. So it's
That's okay, Bobby.
I finally figured out how to actually do it. So Thom, we're so proud and so pleased with all you're doing. You're just remarkable. My quick question to you is, can you build a forkula?
No, that's a whole different craft. So that's a very
Okay.
specialized skill.
Yeah.
And I've never tried. I've never tried. It's done. It's bandsaw work. And it's draw knife work, and yeah, and spoke shave work. And that's those three tools.
And Thom, what kind of wood goes into the forkula? Is it a hardwood? I assume.
Yeah, it's walnut. It's walnut. Yeah,
Oh.
sometimes cherry, but mostly walnut, European walnut.
Mm-hmm. Right. And how long would a forkula with a skilled person take to build?
Oh, I think that so there are three forkula makers now, and they do a lot of, like, this one behind me was made by the old timer that died maybe 30 years ago. But he's the one that taught all of the current forkula makers. And so the ones that I've worked with, they would typically take about a week to make it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Also, I was just curious about what kind of goos and glues do you put into it? Is it epoxy? What kind of traditional glue do you use?
Not much epoxy, but they do use polyurethane. Yeah.
Tremendous.
Can I ask you a question?
Go ahead.
Absolutely.
Sure. Okay. In Venice or the other waterways that you were dealing with, was that salt water or was
Yes,
it a combination?
It's on the
of-
Mediterranean. Yeah, I mean it's on the Adriatic Sea, yeah, in the Mediterranean. Yeah,
So it's a combination of,
no,
you
it's
know,
salt water. There's no fresh water going in there. The Venetians knew very, very early on that a lagoon is a temporary geological phenomena, and that either it will get overtaken by the sea or it will get silted up if you don't divert the rivers out of it. And so they diverted the rivers out of it, and it's only so, and then they reinforced the barrier islands that separate it from the Adriatic.
right. I appreciate your answer. I mean, I understand that the salt water is very corrosive. Yeah. Okay.
It is. It's also
Thank you.
preserved. It's corrosive to the steel fasteners that are used, but it's better for the wood. So it's a double-edged.
Well, that's why I really um appreciate your responses, because just what you just told me, I didn't know. So thank you.
You're welcome.
And it's great because no, I mean, seriously, I mean, all of, the mariners and all of the experts, they teach me things all the time that I don't know. And that's so great. And your lecture is top of the line. Your photos are just beyond words. And it's just, the whole thing is a great um, presentation. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity.
Thom, how long does the wood have to age before you can use it to build a gondola?
Yeah, so once we go get that log that I was talking about back from the sawyer, we've got to let it air dry. And typically it depends on the thickness of the wood, but typically about a year per inch.
Wow.
Following
How
up,
did your
Thom.
stint at Carpenter's? did the Carpenter's boat shop help you in moving into this direction? And what other boat shops have you seen that use comparable training?
Oh, there's no place in the world like the Carpenter's boat shop. And it was fundamental. Because of that, my proposal to go to Venice was much, much stronger than if I was just some kid with an idea that wanted to go build gondolas. They would have said, yeah, right. Okay. But having that experience, the foundation said, yeah, we think you can do this. We're going to give you the money.
What?
Bobby, you had a question.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was following up Matthew's question, and that was quite simply being in that lagoon in terms of Venice itself. Do you use copper bottom paint, and what kind of fasteners were you using? Was it stainless steel, bronze, copper? What is the fasteners to go into that type of salt water?
Galvanized. Galvanized. That means that you get to do more repairs.
Oh.
Yeah, no,
and
things could be improved. Things could be improved.
no, and Bob, I was just so nice to, have you, on this lecture, and you're the best, and I understand that. And just letting you know that I'll be seeing you on the county road in the near future. That's all I got.
Hello, can you hear us here at the boat shop?
Hey, apprentices, yes.
Hey, Thom, excellent lecture. Thank you so much. We're here on campus watching. We were wondering, has anyone done any loftings or plans of gondolas?
I have. Yes. No, so I've done, I did it digitally, and then there is a draftsman in Venice, Gilberto Penso, who has created a set of plans. Yes. But they are not really, I mean, you have to know a lot more than what they can help you with. It would be very difficult to take a set of plans and build a gondola from those.
And to follow up, are there a lot of historic examples in museums of, 1,000-year-old gondolas? Anything like that that's been preserved?
Well, no. The oldest gondolas, actually, one of the oldest gondolas that exists is here in the United States, and it's down in Norfolk, Virginia, at the Mariners Museum down there. And they actually, while I was there, they sent it back to Venice to be restored. And it was done at the Tramontine, that very important gondola builder that developed the asymmetry. It was done in that boatyard.
Wow, thank you.
It's from the late 1800s.
So, hi, Thom.
Hey, Kurt.
Been
Good
forever.
to see you.
Yeah, and you too.
No.
So I lived outside Madison, Wisconsin for a while, and one of the benefits is Taliesin. Frank Lloyd Wright House is right there. And when you take the tour of Taliesin, they hold up this funny shaped wooden object and say, anyone know what this is? And I said, yes, that's a, well, I didn't have the word porcola, but there was one on Frank Lloyd Wright's drafting desk in Wisconsin at Taliesin. That was really interesting design concept.
It was made by Giuseppe Carli.
Awesome.
And there's one at MoMA in New York as well.
Yeah. It's wonderful.
Hey, Thom.
Someone mentioned there, Thom, that you'd be up in up in Pemaquid at some point. Are you planning on being up that way?
Yes, yeah. So there's the big reunion coming up this August, and Alicia is just about to put up the sign up page for that. So if anyone wants to come up for the big reunion for us this year, we're that link I'm sure will be available soon.
Okay, great. That'd be good. I have a lot of questions. That was a great presentation, and it's so interesting, the stuff you've done. And I can only imagine the stories, like, just because you said you spoke no Italian when you went there, and yet you were learning. I don't know if Maestro Garamaldo.
So he did. So Ronaldo, yeah, and so interesting. In Venice, they speak Venetian, so you know they understand Italian, and they can speak Italian, but they prefer to speak Venetian, especially in boatyards where they typically don't have a lot of education, and so I had to learn Venetian as well.
Well,
I
I've
spoke
got
back to them,
tons
and
of
they spoke
questions.
back Italian.
Yeah, and I hope I'll catch up with you in August that way, and also with Bobby that way too. It's so nice to think about life back in the boat shop years ago, and the people there.
Yeah.
That's sometimes a little heartbreaking, but always wonderful. Yeah.
Mom, I want to thank you very much. I gotta go. Sono contento. Arrivederci.
Anche per me. Grazie di essere venuto.
Ciao.
Tom, I just wanted to chime in for a quick second here and say first, thank you very much. I'm listening from all the way from West Coast in California. And I just wanted to let you know, if you're not aware, I lived in Venice, California for a while, which it's on the coast. And there was a gentleman in the 1930s by the name of Abbott Kinney. He was a cigarette tycoon, and he decided to recreate Venice in Venice, California. And he dug canals and made Venetian canals, and they still exist. They kind of collapsed for but
yeah.
I won't go into details. Are you familiar with that at all?
I am, yeah.
Okay, cool. I just thought it'd be kind of cool to have a gondola down in there again.
Well, there's some down in Coronado,
cool.
and various places in California, and also throughout the United States. There's various gondolas being used to take passengers on rides. So
yeah, great, cool, amazing journey you've had. Thanks.
Thank you, Thom.
Thank you, Freda. Great to see you.
See you.
Folks have any more questions for Thom? Thom, outstanding, a delight. Thank you so much. Appreciate your sharing and all the learning this evening, and can't wait to see you this summer.
Well, thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much.
Good night, everybody.
All right. Good night, everybody. Thanks for being here.